All right, let's get right into it. Today, we're doing a deep dive into a really fascinating crypto investment idea called the Solana vertical strategy. And to make it real, we're going to use an actual portfolio from our source material as a case study to see exactly how this whole thing works. This quote from the source, man, it just nails the whole idea. Instead of trying to pick one single winning project, which is like buying just one room in a huge building, this strategy is about betting on the entire Solana ecosystem. You're not buying a room, you're buying the whole house. So what exactly is ecosystem investing? Well, it's a strategy where you invest in a whole bunch of interconnected assets, but they're all inside one single blockchain network. The goal here isn't to hope one of them goes to the moon. It's to capture the value from the entire system growing together. It's all about synergy. Okay, so to really get a grip on this strategy, we first have to understand the kind of market it's built for. So let's quickly break down the anatomy of what's known in crypto as an alt season. If you want to see what a real, full-blown alt season looks like, just rewind the clock to 2020 and 2021. You had Bitcoin hit a new all-time high. And then, like clockwork, all that capital started flooding into everything else. And that's when we saw these just absolutely insane parabolic runs for other coins. Now, according to the source material, which frames this as a kind of future-looking scenario from March 16, 2026, the market feels like a coiled spring. You've got Bitcoin pushing $73,500, but the altcoin season index is just neutral. The theory is the conditions are perfect for all that capital to start rotating outwards again. So, if the market's a coiled spring, how do you actually capitalize on that? Well, this is where the portfolio comes in. It's what's called a vertically integrated bet on the Solana economy, and it's designed for this exact environment. So, let's meet the players. And here it is. This is the actual portfolio from the source based on that March 2026 scenario. These four assets, Meteora, Bonk, Pyth Network, and Jupiter, they're the core pillars of this buy-the-house strategy. And as you'll see, each one plays a very, very specific role. All right, let's get into the nitty-gritty. We're going to break down each of these four pillars so you can really understand the strategic role that each one plays in this whole vertically integrated portfolio. First up, we've got Jupiter, or JUP. Think of this one as the gateway. The source even calls it the Google of Solana, and for good reason. It's pretty much the main front door for almost all capital and trading activity on the entire network. So here's the deal with Jupiter. Because it's the main place for trading, it gets to capture a little piece of almost every single transaction in the ecosystem. And its competitive advantage, its moat, is this active staking reward system, which gives people a real reason to hold the token, making the whole thing more stable. Next, we have Pyth Network. If Jupiter is the front door, Pyth is kind of like the nervous system, running through the walls of the house. It works behind the scenes, providing the supercritical data that makes everything else on the network even possible. What Pyth does is provide this insanely accurate real-time price data, which is absolutely essential for decentralized finance. It already controls a huge piece of the market, and its moat is that it's basically a tax on growth. Any new DeFi app that launches on Solana, they need Pyth's data. It's a pure infrastructure play. Our third pillar is Meteora, or MET. This is the engine room. It's the deep, foundational liquidity layer that lets all that trading we just talked about on Jupiter happen smoothly without a hitch. So Meteora provides the liquidity pools for trading and basically serves as the yield backbone for the whole network. The source actually calls this the most undervalued piece of the puzzle, and here's why. Its price is directly, almost mathematically, tied to the total value locked up in the Solana ecosystem. And that brings us to our fourth and, let's be honest, most volatile pillar, Bonk. This is the megaphone. It's the cultural mascot, it's the gauge for market sentiment, and it's the asset that moves at the speed of social media. The source calls Bonk the beta king and the liquidity sponge. And what that means is, when new retail investors get excited and rush into Solana, this is often the very first thing they buy. It just soaks up all that FOMO. And with hundreds of integrations, it's way more than just a meme these days. Okay, so we've met the gateway, the nervous system, the engine, and the megaphone. Now for the really exciting part. Let's look at the home run scenario, how these four pieces can work together to potentially create a massive, massive return. And this is where it all clicks into place. You see, this isn't about four separate bets. It's about one big, synergistic machine. When activity on Solana picks up, Jupiter's volume explodes. That, in turn, increases the yield on Meteora, which encourages more apps to launch, which then need data from Pyth. And all that excitement, it gets amplified by Bonk, which brings in even more new users. It's a perfect positive feedback loop. And here is the potential payoff. The source material breaks down this home run scenario based on its bullish price targets for 2026. What you're seeing here is an initial portfolio worth around $4,300 that could potentially grow to over $42,000. Yeah, that's a potential 10 times return on the entire portfolio. The power isn't in any single one of these assets hitting it big, but in how they all lift each other up. But okay, let's pump the brakes for a second. With that kind of potential reward, you know there has to be a risk. So what is the major catch here? The biggest risk is something called high correlation. You have to understand this is the exact opposite of a diversified portfolio. You've bought the house, which means if the foundation, the Solana network itself, has a major technical failure or a huge price crash, the whole house is coming down. All four of these assets will almost certainly fall right along with it. And that leaves us with this really cool final thought to chew on. If betting on a single project is like buying a room, and this vertical strategy is like buying the whole house, what's the next step? Are we going to see strategies for buying the entire neighborhood? It's a pretty fascinating question about where all this is headed.